Welcome into the MPW Digital Postseason Show, presented by Walk-Ons Sports Bistreaux. In case you're wondering, Chase looked over and said, how much longer? I said, 2, 1.
Yeah.
We were at the end. Neither one of us, we were off in our own little worlds. Welcome into the show. It's brought to you by Walk-Ons Sports Bistreaux. They have hosted, or presented, I should say. I've hosted and Chase has hosted, but they have presented the pregame show all season, the postgame show all season. We did the very smart thing and did not do a postgame show last night at 1 a.m. It would not have gone well. It would not have gone well.
You guys were not in the best mood. We were tired. We were trying to get some content. It would have been a volatile combination, I think, at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It would not have worked.
And basically every Ole Miss fan was drunk at that point. So I don't really know
Yeah. And I wasn't drunk and kind of wished I were. And so, yeah, it would not have gone well. Walk-On Sports Bistreaux puts everything they've got into bringing you game day with the taste of Louisiana. Dig into their mouth-watering Louisiana cuisine like po' boys, gumbo, voodoo shrimp, plus fan favorites like juicy burgers and fresh salads. Quality fresh ingredients you can't help but crave. 2 locations here in Mississippi, 1737B University Avenue in Oxford, 720 Highland Colony Parkway in Ridgeland. Walk-Ons Sports Bistreaux, more than a restaurant. People ask us all the time, hey, how can I support the show? Here's how. Go to Walk-Ons in Ridgeland, go to Walk-Ons in Oxford, and tell them you are there because of this show. That's how you help us. You hit the like button, you subscribe to YouTube, and you go to our sponsors and say the only reason I'm here is because of the show. Now, the food's good, and the great service, bar, the whole deal, but tell somebody, preferably a manager. That's how you help. I mean, I'm just being honest.
That's kind of like every ad, though. Like, tell somebody.
Tell somebody.
We need you to be vocal. That would be great.
When you buy a truck from Clark Ford, make sure Corey knows that you heard about it on the podcast.
Yeah. That is why you're there.
Speaking of people who sponsor things, all of our coverage last week, and we had a lot of it, I thought. I was pretty proud of it, of the All-State Sugar Bowl was brought to you by the Clearwater Group. We have a lot of listeners who are either business owners or executives for a variety of different companies periodically. I know many of them have projects or issues being dealt with by the state legislature or one of the numerous state agencies in Jackson. No matter what, you have to get it dealt with, and you want to make sure you get the best results possible for your business. If you need guidance for how to successfully navigate through state government, I recommend you reach out to the Clearwater Group. The Clearwater Group has been working with Chase and me for years. They're in the lobbying business. They have an exceptional reputation in that world, and it really matters. So if you need some guidance on how to move forward on an issue with state government or even larger local governments, you should reach out to them and get their advice. Just email them at Austin, that's AUSTIN, at clearwatergroup.ms, or look them up on the web. We're both in the Clark Ford studios. Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900 is the number. Call it. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom line. There's no hassle. There's no haggle. You get your quote, and the rest is completely up to you. You can shop it around. You can do what I've done numerous times now. What I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. You will love the product. You'll love the service. And Corey wants to be your car guy. He wants to be a truck guy. People say, what does that mean? We'll call the number. You'll start to find out. 662-257-1900. Brian Rippey will join us a little later. Jeffrey Wright will join before that on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. Rafters Music and Food on the Square in Oxford, also in New Albany. Po' boys, burgers, great appetizers, full beer selection, full bar, the whole deal at Rafters Music and Food on the Square in Oxford and in New Albany. If you are missing this, you're probably listening to it as the Monday Oxford Exxon podcast. Chase, what's going on with the Oxford Exxon?
Try to give away $10. We can do that really easily. All you got to do is take a picture of the QR code right there at the pump. 1,000 points, $10, including at the tank. The tank you are filling up right then. You can get that there with the Exxon mobile app. through the Blue Sky locations throughout Mississippi and the Oxford Exxon lunch specials $5.69. You know about those, 2 sides of bread, 32-ounce drink, and much more. Yeah, Grind, we chose to do this as, over a Monday morning pod for a couple different reasons. People wanted this show.
We had a contractual obligation.
I was about to say Walk-Ons has a 13th show, so we had to do a 13th show. And last night just wouldn't have made sense. Frankly, on a number of levels, including things that maybe have happened today as far as updating news.
I needed to get on the Zoom to ask questions. Chase, there was 2 Zooms. So there was 2 Ole Miss Zooms. One was with Lane Kiffin and Chance Campbell and Snoop Connor, 3 people that we needed to ask questions of. The other was with, was it 5 or 6 players?
It was 5. Supposed to be 5, and it might have been 4, and they might have ended up being 4. Though.
But there was a separate, at the same time, simultaneous Zoom. So obviously it's very difficult to monitor 2 Zooms at once. So I got on the Kiffin Zoom. Chase got on the Zoom with Jerry and Ely, ended up breaking the Jerry and Ely's done with Ole Miss. His career's over. Broke that news. So we just needed we needed to work.
Yeah, the Zoom that we had, so yeah, Neal had Lane, Snoop, and Chance.
That's correct.
And then we had Miles, Dean, Jerian, and Braylon. I'm incredibly frustrated today because I don't know how Luke Altmaier was one of the 4 or 5 players that came. He was the other story of the night.
It strikes me as incredibly...
It made no sense. I kept thinking, he's the next guy. He's the next guy. Because at first...
Were they just being obtuse to not bring him in?
I don't know. At first, I thought he was at your press conference, and I'm like, this is kind of stupid because I'm writing this story and you're doing this, and I'm kind of stewing a little bit. And then I realized, no, you didn't have him. And I thought, okay. Because even then, the moderator person who kept trying to make all the interviews last 15 minutes, she was like, is anybody from Ole Miss Communications there? Are you sending anybody else? And I kept thinking, Luke will show up. And he never showed up, and I'm going, oh, God.
Well, and you could almost feel them discussing amongst themselves, the Sugar Bowl media people. Like, how come the Baylor press conferences last half an hour and the Ole Miss ones last 4 minutes? And it's the difference in, frankly, it's the difference in the way that the programs are treated by media. I mean, that the programs treat media. That's really what it is. I mean, it's January, and everybody's like, I'm done. I mean, we all need a break from one another. And, you made the comment today, and you're exactly right. Programs take on the personality of their head coach, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And this one has. Both of those have.
What's interesting about this is in both ways. With the Ole Miss team, they just wrapped up a 10-3 season, obviously a very successful season. If Matt stays healthy, they might win the game last night. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, sure, who knows?
But, early on, August, September, it was a team that was very focused. It was a team that was very locked in. It was a team that played practice light because Lane does light practices, short practices, keeps them energized. I mean, they really took on his personality in that way. But what they've done here toward the end of the year is taken on his personality from a media standpoint because even questions, I don't think they were coached. I don't think that's fair. But the normal question of, hey, what'd you guys think about?
I don't think it's unfair.
Well, what'd you guys think about Luke Altmaier tonight? I mean, hey, he did really well. Jerian gave a really good answer, gave a couple really good answers. But the other dudes, they all said it's just a next man up mentality and kind of moved on to the next question. It's like, give me something, anything here. Like, it just couldn't really get much. Like, it was, as the person writing the Altmaier story last night, I was kind of frustrated. I spent a good bit of time annoyed with that. But,
yeah.
Anyway, that's...
That
is like number 97 on the things going on right now.
Whoever made the decision not to bring him to the post-game press conference did a disservice to the media that was trying to cover Ole Miss. Period. If that was Lane, it applies to Lane. If it was media relations, it applies to media relations. It was a disservice to Ole Miss. He came in because Matt got hurt, midway through the first quarter?
That's correct, yes.
So, I mean, Luke played 3.5 quarters in the Sugar Bowl in his first significant college appearance on national television against Baylor in a game that everyone was watching, and it was the storyline after the Matt Corral injury.
Mm-hmm.
And to not bring him was a deliberate decision not to bring him. And whoever made that decision, it was the wrong decision. It was a decision that was frankly hostile towards media. I mean, it's what it is. It's not. I'm not trying to fight. But I have some people like, what do you feel like you're pushing back lately? I'm not really pushing back, but it's kind of like, okay, well, if this is the way it's going to be, then I think you have to sometimes point out when it feels like it's a deliberate attempt to not let media do their jobs. The fans wanted to hear from two people last night, Matt Corral and Luke Altmaier, and they heard from neither.
And I'm conditioned to get the Matt one.
But there's a part of me that when I heard that Matt's x-ray, thank goodness, came back negative.
Yeah.
So he can't come talk at a podium? Did he choose not to talk? Did Luke choose not to talk? Because I doubt that. It just felt weird. There's a disconnect in our what we do. There is a growing disconnect between media that are unaffiliated with the university and media who cover the programs. And it feels like it's becoming more combative, frankly.
I know we are butted up against Yellowstone tonight, so thank you, as the number does seem to climb there, that you are choosing us over Kevin Costner and the Wild West tonight. So,
I mean, they're going to ride around on horses and kill somebody, right? I mean, basically at the end of the day.
Is that what's going to happen?
And then stare at each other and talk real dramatically, and then
you think so?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I do like the cowboy hats, and I like their clothes, the boots
really?
and the hats and stuff. Yeah, I want a cowboy hat.
You keep kind of trying to get yourself in that direction, and you can't quite do it.
Well, where would I wear a cowboy hat if I had one?
We're on the show.
I mean, I could wear it on the show.
I mean,
absolutely.
You got boots, don't you?
I do have some boots.
Do you wear them very often?
Occasionally. Not often.
Because I've gotten into wearing mine a lot.
Really?
Yeah, and like it's weird. Like everybody's like, hold on a minute, what are you doing? Because, I mean, it's not me. I've worn loafers every day for almost my whole life. But I got a pair of cowboy boots, I guess, 2 Christmases ago. And I've got to where most of the time, like jeans or something that kind of goes with them, I've got the boots on. Yeah. They've really grown on me to the point that I kind of want another pair.
Did you have to get sort of used to walking in them?
A little bit, maybe.
Because I'm having to adjust to walking in them.
Well, but, they have slick soles kind of like loafers. I mean, it's sort of like what I'm used to from that standpoint. And,
So you scuff them up.
Yeah, you scuff them up a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
Chris Barnes says the rodeo is coming to Tupelo soon.
I mean, hey, all in. All in. Mark, Matt's x-ray was negative, which means he had no fractures or anything in that ankle. He should be completely fine by the time the combine gets here. It should not impact his combine or his pro day whatsoever.
Well, knock on wood.
Well, right. Barring a setback that we're unaware of, I guess.
He's got 2 months to get ready for his combine. But the deal is you don't want to participate in the combine unless you are 100%.
Because the numbers count.
The numbers count. But his pro day will be after that. As long as he can do one or the other, he'll be fine. And frankly, I think they like a lot of NFL teams like the fact that he showed up and played for his team.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both feel the same way on the subject. There are some people in our field
My God.
I want to punch in the face.
Well, that goes for a lot of topics, not just this one.
But on this one in particular, I have a very strong yet simple opinion as it pertains to opt-outs.
The player can do what he wants.
If you feel like you need to opt out, opt out. It's cool. You've earned that right. If you feel like, no, I want to play with my guys one more time, and I know there's a risk, and it's worth it to me, and that's exactly what Matt said for a month, then by God.
He'll play the game.
He played.
Because here, look, we think he is going to have nothing that's going to be a long-term side effect. It's humans making decisions. There's nothing that says that a GM is sitting there at number 7 or 8, has these 2 quarterbacks and go, you know what? That guy played for his team. Let's take him. I mean, it could be this close. I mean, who knows? It could help him.
You know what my bigger concern with Matt would be if I'm an NFL guy?
That he won't quit lowering his damn shoulder.
Yeah, my would be the run before the one where he got hurt, where I would say, hey, listen, we like you. We like everything about you. But do you ever watch NFL football? Because I don't want you lowering your shoulder and doing that in week 5 when you're the face of our franchise. Mm-hmm. Nope. Get down. You might compete too much.
Yeah.
We have no question about your heart. We kind of wonder if maybe you have too much of it.
Do not take on the middle linebacker.
No.
I know. I think that's.
I mean, if I'm an NFL scout an NFL exec, an NFL coach, an owner, that's my question to him is, hey, can you control that? I know you love your teammates. That's obvious. I know you love who you play for. It's obvious. You have no question about your competitive fire. You have it in spades. But can you pardon the pun, can you corral it?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't, you do us no good when you're on the IR. I need to know that, I mean, I'm not talking about the NFC Championship game, but I'm talking about week 3 against Detroit. Can you cool it? I need to know. That'd be my question that would come out of the Sugar Bowl, not you decided to play with your teammates, because frankly, I find that to be attractive, if you will.
That's a tie-breaking win, not a loss.
Now, on the flip side, there are guys who opted out. And I don't, like, for example, Traylon Burks didn't play for Arkansas yesterday. I don't begrudge him that.
Well, Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Exactly the same as.
Like, Burks got hurt late in the season against Alabama. And he sucked it up, and he played against Mizzou in their final. And then he said, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. I have no problem with that. If I'm an NFL exec, hey, you didn't play in the Outback Bowl. You weren't 100%. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's cool. But the media that do this, oh, God, no, everyone should opt out, or, oh, God, everyone should absolutely play. No, I mean, individuals make individual decisions.
Well, the coaches damn sure can make their own decisions on what they're doing and where they're going, so why can't the players? Same thing.
Right. It's all good.
And every GM's going to get to weight it differently and make their decisions with a full body of work. And you go, okay. It is what it is.
I've had a couple Bengals. Did you watch the Bengals today?
Yeah, dude.
I
mean, I'm
Bengals Chiefs.
I've got a Saints win today, and I mean, I'm not like doing anything, but I will tell you, it was kind of like that meme where the dude's looking over the other way or whatever. I'm kind of looking over Jamar Chase, going, that's kind of fun.
Wow,
like, that's not bad.
Bengals Chiefs was as good as the NFL gets. That was
Bengals clinched the North today.
Bengals clinched the North. Jamar Chase is an absolute monster.
Dude
is a monster. And Joe Burrow's not far behind, but the story of that team is Jamar Chase. And Patrick Mahomes is incredible.
He should win all the awards.
Oh, yeah.
Chase.
Oh, yeah. Those are two phenomenal quarterbacks. Which, as we get into sort of the conversations a little bit with people, is quarterback is such a comprehensive in football today. You have to have a quarterback. You just have to have one. Both of those teams do. They're both – the Bengals and the Chiefs are Super Bowl contenders.
Oh, yeah.
Because both of those quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, can get their –
You think Burrow's ready now?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay.
He's there. But he's that guy, right? There's a little bit of Matt Corral and Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I mean, he competes. My God, he competes. I mean, like, you watch him and you're like, hey, dude, back off. He did it a couple of times today, like diving for stuff. Like, no.
We need all your faculties.
I mean, Mixon got frustrated with him today. Like, dude, you matter to us. Chill. It's the thing about Corral. But to me, Matt playing last night, that tells me nothing other than that cat just bubbles up. I got to know that you can control it. That's it. That's my only question on Matt Corral.
That was ESPN's question that day. When we ran through all that stuff, they talked to the scouts and said, hey, he's got to quit.
It's more than
Can't
fair.
Take him on.
It's more than fair. It's a fair criticism.
Yeah.
Got an elite arm. He's very athletic. I think he sees the field well. I think he's very bright. I don't think Matt's going to have any trouble adjusting to an NFL offense. It's, hey, you have to cool it. Because if you get knocked out for 6 weeks, and there goes your season. And so it just can't happen. You have to be smart.
Are we missing a logo?
I don't know.
Under my name?
Oh, no, I just didn't have one.
Oh, we're not?
No. I mean, I could put something.
Because we moved them around.
I moved them around because I wanted to make sure that we recognize the Clearwater.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I was just curious. Okay.
Let's see.
What do you want to do?
You get to Jeffrey. Maybe we can take on a few of the topics as we get to Jeffrey. I will tell you that we're watching a couple of stories right now, one that I feel free telling you about, the other that I don't. We're on Zach Evans' commitment watch. I've got a really good story ready to roll. I talked to a bunch of people today. I have a story ready, which means that he's going to sign with Utah at some point, right tomorrow morning at 2.
It won't be the craziest Utah story because that's where the DJ Law kid went. Signed with 4 different schools in the same day. Ole Miss, Utah, and a JUCO to go with both teams if he had not qualified.
By the way, that was a hell of a game. Utah, Ohio State.
It was.
It was a fun game.
I felt bad for Utah.
I did too.
I found myself pulling for Utah for whatever reason I'm unaware of.
From the very beginning.
Yeah, I have no real reason, but sure. Yeah, that
Couldn't
sounds good.
they move that game up 1 hour? You'd still get the sunset and all that stuff. Couldn't you move that game up 1 hour?
But they wanted it at the beginning of the fourth quarter. The sunset's got to be the exact right spot.
Because the Sugar Bowl started 30 minutes too late.
And the Sugar Bowl's not moving off their nighttime game.
I know.
Yeah, and they shouldn't. It's
but
fine.
you could move up the Rose Bowl 1 hour.
Yeah, 3 o'clock instead of 4 o'clock.
And move the Sugar Bowl up 45 minutes, and everything would work out great.
No. Both those bowls are hard-headed as hell. They're the 2 most hard-headed bowls in the country. And the Rose Bowl is by far the worst. But the Sugar Bowl's like right in behind them.
Yeah, Mark points out about Micah Parsons. I was trying to think of the Cowboys player. If you're playing Dallas, you just an 11's right there. Get down. Hand it off.
Real quick before you do that.
Okay.
We put too much recency bias on the Alabama game for Georgia, right? Because they look like the Python again.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that Vegas came out with Georgia minus 2.5 or whatever it was. I mean, Vegas is like, hey, we know what's coming. I think we all know what's coming. And
Georgia's quarterback play was really good the other night. He played well.
Look, on the first time those two teams met, Georgia didn't have as much to play for. Motivation matters in bowl games, right?
Yeah, sure.
Georgia knew that it was going
no matter what
to the playoff. Alabama knew that without winning the game against Georgia, they were not going to the playoff. Well, there's 2 different motivations.
Yeah.
Should be a great game.
Yeah.
The other story is it's a different story, but Chase is ready for it. Who knows? We might even get to talk about it tonight. Probably not, but maybe.
Okay. I wasn't sure where you were going. Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
We also are still on DJ Durkin watch with whatever's going on there.
Yeah, so midday yesterday, I would have bet that he was leaving.
Now you think he's staying.
Midday today, I would bet that he is staying, but I want to emphasize that this is one of those deals that is not done.
Also, it is 7:24 tonight. So when this podcast goes live in the morning, be aware that it's 7:24 as we're talking right now.
I think Jimbo Fisher has a couple of guys that he wants to talk to, and DJ Durkin is one of those people. And that conversation might change everything. I think he also wants to talk to Derek Mason at Auburn.
Okay.
So.
And Ole Miss is trying to keep DJ Durkin.
Aggressively.
Yeah. So, there's that.
But I think DJ has something. I mean, I've talked to people today who would know. I think DJ has some things he wants to talk about. Some things he needs to kind of feel better about.
Mm-hmm.
And then people are asking about quarterbacks.
I got nothing. I'll
be honest. I know there's a lot of talk about. Did you see the Chip Kelly UCLA crazy stuff?
Yeah.
I know that makes people ask about Dylan Gabriel.
Watch a chance that if for some reason NILs get stupid and Caleb Williams ends up at USC, that Gabriel bails to Oklahoma.
Yeah,
watch that one.
That's what Dylan Gabriel is watching before he does anything else.
Yeah.
Now, if you tell me that somehow Oklahoma hangs on to Caleb Williams and Chip Kelly gets fired, okay, different deal. And Ole Miss might wait on that a couple weeks. I don't get the sense that watch him commit in an hour, but I don't get the sense that Ole Miss and Cameron Ward are very far along.
They appear to be slow playing each other at this point.
Almost breaking up slowly.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be the one to start the conversation.
Kind of like you went on one date and you didn't really resolve that, hey, we're never going to do this again. Or maybe you even said, hey, we're going to talk again soon.
It's the guy that has the tick who every time goes, hey, let's do it again sometime. And doesn't really mean to. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, hell. Then you finish next, yeah, I'm out. Hey, let's do it again.
And she's like, I don't really want to do it again, but he was a nice enough guy. And if he called me, maybe. And so they're just kind of doing that dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then is it Dorian Thompson?
Dorian Thompson, yeah.
Thompson Green?
DGT, Green Thompson.
Green Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's acting like he's going to stay, which is not, I don't know.
Not ideal for Dylan Gabriel.
Although I think Dylan Gabriel got a NIL deal, and that's the reason he's at UCLA.
Correct. Yes.
Is that what you've heard as well?
Yeah, that was true. But
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get those two in roll. I mean, so at all. No funny business at all that happens with NIL.
Nope.
It's just like the freedom fighters tell you.
Yeah. Can't be used as a recruiting incentive.
Not at all.
Nope.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jeffrey. How are you?
I am well, gentlemen. How are y'all?
Chase, put your headset on. See if you can. Is his audio okay?
I don't know. Talk. Jeffrey?
Testing. 3, mic check 1, 2. Testing.
Yeah, I think you're good now.
Yeah, he's okay. How was your New Year?
Well, I had Ole Miss pretty big, so it could have been better.
So did you hold on real quick? Did you lose power yesterday in the middle of all these games?
It was such a disaster. So we obviously had winter storms, and it's one of those weird situations where if you have winter storms and you lose power, you kind of have an understanding. You have an understanding that, hey, you got to be patient with the crew. Well, what happened to me is we didn't lose power, but in their effort, I think, to get power back to the traffic light, they cut our power. And you could tell when it happened, one of the neighbors across the street went, and you could see he had the reaction of what happened, and there was this kind of the shoulder shrug from the guy in the truck, and it's like, well, what are you going to do? And he just kind of moved on, and then it was basically right before the kickoff of the Rose Bowl, so I missed the whole first half of the Rose Bowl,
okay.
And then we went over to my parents' house, and that was an Ole Miss household. It was a funeral.
All right, you like to talk about quarterback play. What did you see out of Luke Altmaier last night?
Yeah, I don't know what there is to take or not to take from it because a couple of things. Number one, that's about as bad of a spot as you can be put in.
Sure.
Because no matter what anyone says, it was twofold. Number one, the reaction from Ole Miss when you lose Corral. It's, your head's going to drop a little bit. And then on top of that, that was when I felt like Baylor thought, okay, we can win this. And with Altmaier, from what I watched of him when he was at Starkville, I really liked him. What I saw last night was when he was trying to just straight up run the offense and run the plays that were called, he looked if you're going through a checklist in your head, you're always going to be a little bit slower. You're not going to be playing freely. You're not going to be playing quickly. And I thought when he was in those moments, it didn't look well. But then when I thought he was really, really good, when plays break down and he could kind of scramble, and then it was no longer thinking. It was just kind of reacting and playing ball, if you will. I thought he looked really good. I just still don't know what there was or wasn't to take from it because, in fairness to the young man, guys, they were with a 3-man front.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just controlling the line of scrimmage all night, and they couldn't run it. They, I know the stats show they ran it decently, but I never felt like they could run it when they had to. And I thought he threw a really good deep ball.
Yeah.
He was. The pick six was a little unlucky. Also, he threw it late. But, I mean, I can't imagine asking a young man to go in his, first meaningful snaps. I know there were there's 3 or 4 snaps against Auburn. But, let's be real, and then kind of when the game flipped and he made the big throw to get the touchdown and tie it up, and then they kind of started to get some momentum, and then there was yet again another back-breaking play, and then, it turns around the first time the defense gives up, a touchdown of 25 or more all year. It was just kind of a bad game script. So I thought he did some good things. I don't know how you could have seen anything definitively that says that's the guy, or definitively he can't play. To me, it was very incomplete.
Yeah, you mentioned the offensive line issues for Ole Miss. They end up getting sacked 10 times over the course of the night, Corral and Altmaier combined. And because of it getting blown up, and not just getting blown up, but as you said, getting blown up from the middle most of the time, You're immediately having to get out of the pocket. You're having to move. You're having to do so many different things that there was no rhythm anywhere. It was in the passing game. It was in the run game. I mean, he's having to check everything, even in the passing game.
And their tackle play was abysmal too. I mean, it wasn't just guard, center, guard. It started guard, center, guard, and then Jeremy James got hurt, and right tackle was an adventure, and that was the worst game Nick Brokers played in an Ole Miss uniform.
Yeah, it was. So, point being, he had all those things going on. As you said, he improvised really well. I thought there was arm strength there. It looked like when I got done, I kind of went, well, okay, the talent's there. I see where he absolutely could be a starting quarterback in the SEC, but there's still a good bit of development, and I think that's the question. It just didn't look like he is necessarily developed to the point of being ready at this point.
No, and I think the two things, if you want to look at it from the positive perspective, I don't think Luke Altmaier is going to run the same offense that Matt Corral runs. And Lane Kiffin throughout his career has shown an ability of whatever he does have, he kind of tools his offense to do what they, to get the ball in the playmakers the best that they can. Well, with Matt Corral, you're just going to run a very, very different offense because of, his elusiveness, his ability to be an elite runner, and all of those things. Well, I mean, I'm not saying I thought Luke showed some good athleticism, but I mean, I don't think anyone's going to mistake him for a 4.5 guy. But when they came out in the second half, and you could tell they had the long halftime to kind of come together and be like, okay, what can we do? How can we move the football? I thought they had two really good drives. And, in the end, this really boiled down to Ole Miss got 6 opportunities inside the 40 of Baylor, and they got 0 points. I mean, even their touchdown was a deep shot. So, I think if you committed to him and said he's the guy and built an offense around him, I think that is a more than capable SEC starter.
So I asked Lane Kiffin, and he didn't like my question because the way Zooms work, the way Zooms work, you get one shot, and so you have to make sure that you take as big of
Dylan and I watched the YouTube last night, yeah.
You have to take as big a bite of the apple as you can.
Yep.
And so I put as many questions as I could into a sentence. But I asked him about, did Luke's performance change the way you approach the portal? And he did not address that at all. And he heard the question because he pointed out that I asked a lot of questions, which for Lane is usually a sign that he was pissed off at least one of the questions. That's what I've observed. And he was just pissed off in general.
I mean, they got, it's very obvious with him what they do on offense dictates his mood.
Yeah.
And, I mean, again, I credit Baylor because I think that defensive front played awesome. I also did not feel like Ole Miss had a very good plan on offense.
Well, and Dave Aranda talked earlier in the week about the one thing that worried him about Ole Miss was the fact that he knew that they had an advantage with their defensive line against Ole Miss's offensive line, but he worried about, does that advantage exist when Ole Miss gets into their tempo? And he talked about how the way to negate that is the opening play of a drive is you have to keep it to 3 yards or less. They did that pretty consistently all night. He talked about how you don't let them get into that. You don't let them get moving.
The momentum downhill, if you will, yeah.
Where they got worn out. And so everything played the way that Dave Aranda wanted it to play out is the way that it played out offensively. I mean, defensively for him. And he's a genius defensively. He's very, very good. And
Ole Miss ran down plays and got 3.5 yards per play.
Okay.
And that includes explosive. So you know what I mean? They won a lot of first downs.
Yeah. Yeah, because 1 40-yard play and you've skewed it the whole night. So, sure. That makes sense.
And so, I mean, to me, like, I don't know. I kind of felt like this the whole year where I do understand last night has a massive impact. And I think it has this massive impact because you went on kind of this roller coaster of, I do think there was at least an acknowledgement of, okay, this is it, not only with Matt, but this is probably it with this group. And you knew there was probably going to be a lot of change, but it felt like there was going to be, one good, fun night again. And everyone was looking for that. And they remember the last time they were there and what there were kind of similar circumstances. The difference, obviously, the recruiting class that was probably coming in was going to be better, but We can get into all that later. But to me, I think it's like as soon as Matt got hurt, it just like took all the air out of it. And then even worse, you got back into the game and you realize, like, guys, Gary Bohannon, I mean,
awful.
So bad.
He was horrible. I mean,
they went 11-2 with that quarterback.
Well, Blake Shapen played a lot. I mean, I mean, Ole
Miss defensively had a good plan, but that quarterback was god awful.
Well, they had a good plan, but also their plan is never for their defense to win the game. Their plan is always for the defense to contain.
Yeah.
And it's kind of bend but don't break. And then, maybe get a turnover. And then really the biggest difference of last night, and I'm certainly not pinning it on anyone, but I don't remember the last time Ole Miss, I guess, was it the LSU game last year when they lost the turnover battle this badly? I mean, Ole Miss is taking care of the football.
Because Matt's taking care of it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, they lose the turnover battle 4-1. I mean, all 21 points came off a turnover. And, even the pick six is even worse because even if you miss the field goal, at least you don't give them 7 because at that point, man, I didn't know. I didn't know if they could go down and score. And so I think what just kind of made it so deflating or whatnot, all the kind of the atmosphere is, I did actually think this was not the Peach Bowl that we covered back in 2014. I thought they showed up ready to play. It's just, everything went against them, and I think Baylor was probably better than we think, even though, as Neal points out, I still have no idea how you won 11 games with that offense.
Yeah, and when you're doing your game plan, I mean, you talk about, hey, what do we do if something happens with the quarterback? But realistically, you don't put a lot of time into, hey, what do we do if Matt goes down with 8 minutes to go in the first quarter? What do we do with that? And you just don't spend a lot of time there because that's just human nature.
No, and honestly, the way that Matt treated it and the way that Matt talked about this game, I think he had every intention of letting Matt play as much as he wanted to play. And it was going to be his team and his night because, God, what he's given that program, I think he has earned that right. And, it's just human nature. When you lose a guy like that, even when they started, you can sit there and go, we got it, and, tap the guy on the head. But, I mean, guys, like, there's a reason, like, when you have, maybe Luke Altmaier becomes that guy in this program. I don't know who's to say one way or the other, but he hasn't done it yet. And that's kind of the problem with belief and confidence in sports. It's like you kind of have to see it happen.
Kind of leaning to what you said about bend but don't break. I thought this was an interesting stat. Ole Miss 51st in the country in scoring defense, and I'm doing quick math here, but like 77 in yards per play.
Yeah, I mean, they were basically – they gave up no explosive plays, but to give up no explosive plays, essentially what that means is you're dropping a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And you're making sure. And then, last night I think when it ended was when they got the massive explosive run on that jet sweep that nobody saw because the camera wasn't even looking at the play.
I mean, they talked about all year. The difference was, like, I think Ole Miss finished number 100 in total defense, meaning yards allowed.
97.
Yeah. And they were
after last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they were probably early, like 51, 52 in scoring
51.
defense. 51. I mean, they created a lot of turnovers. And I thought one of the big plays last night, it's not fair to do this to the kid, but like Dean Leonard drops a pick six.
They had to have that to win the game.
He jumps the route, and if he catches the ball, it's a TD. And then who knows? But they just didn't get the breaks, and then Baylor did. And
missed 2 field goals.
And Baylor was really good defensively. I mean, that was one of the best defenses that Ole Miss has played all year. And you could see it. They were physical, and when you get dominated up front, we've all talked about it. When you get dominated up front, even if you have your All-American quarterback playing at a high level, it's going to be a challenge. And if you get dominated up front and you're playing with your true freshman backup quarterback who hasn't played significant snaps all year, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, again, we'll never know the impact that the injury had. And maybe that, like when Robert Kimdichie got hurt against Memphis in 2015, I've talked to kids on that Memphis team. They said, like, The first time they ever believed that they could win that game was when he got hurt. Maybe that's what happened for Baylor, but from just what we watched of the football game last night, I can't say with 100% certainty Ole Miss wins that game. Ask with Matt Corral, I think I would have bet on it, but I don't think it was a slam dunk. I mean, guys, they were just getting beat at the point of attack on almost every play.
Yeah, he had not solved that defense yet when he left. I mean, when Matt left, he was 2 for 6 with a pick. I mean, he would have done more, but I mean, hadn't gotten there yet, and there was no run game to speak of.
And I think I think it would have maybe opened up because Matt was starting to run more and they were getting some first downs and whatnot. But at the same time, it's like against a really fast physical defense, if your quarterback runs a lot, like there's a lot of opportunities to take a shot.
So when you look ahead to 2022, and I know this is almost impossible today because there's so much transfer portal stuff that has to happen, both with guys coming in and both with guys leaving, frankly. We don't know all those answers. We're starting to hear some of them, but we don't know all of them. What's the one thing that if you were an Ole Miss fan gives you confidence going into 2022, and what's the one or two things that maybe scare you the most?
I think in the end, the one thing that would always give me confidence is Lane Kiffin, for all flaws that he has always put together a really good offense, and it hasn't always had to be with special NFL talent. And I would have faith that he's going to get enough playmakers to move the football. I think what would scare me is the same thing that probably scares a lot of teams that have success, and I know Lane talked about it this week, but when you have success, you have turnover. And it's a lot easier for Nick Saban to replace turnover in every sense of the word. The Nick Saban School for Wayward Boys in the coaching community allows you to replace with some good coaches and whatnot. And he doesn't bat 1,000 on it. I mean, I don't know if his offensive line coach and his coordinator are going to be back this year, but it's really, really hard to replace guys, and you don't bat 1,000. So in the end, honestly, like the loss of Lebby, if you could somehow get Durkin back, and it seems like today there's more optimism than there was, it seemed like even yesterday.
Sure.
I think that is also something to take some confidence from, because like in the end, no matter how realistic it is or isn't, it is always Lane Kiffin's offense from a perception standpoint. And so there's always going to be that angle. And I think that's also why if you're Jeff Lebby, even if Ole Miss made maybe a better offer, I think if you want to become a head coach, you're going to have to leave, because even if you are actually running the offense, like it's just, you're never going to get the credit for that. I'm just at this really, really weird impasse with teams like Ole Miss, in the sense that I don't really know if there's a right answer of how to build a roster. And maybe Ole Miss ends up becoming, under Lane Kiffin, the transfer school. And, are you going to build a national title contender with that? I don't think so. But, I mean, I can see where he gets enough pieces and he coaches them up to 8-4. I mean, you know what I mean?
This is a critical recruiting year for them. This class coming up is critical. They've got to do better at the high school level. They do. I mean, here's the thing. It's interesting because I think Lane, when he says it, he's talking about his team, and I think it applies to him. There's the enemy of great is good. Lane Kiffin on Saturdays, most Saturdays, is great. And this is not me talking. This is me talking to a lot of people around him, people who have worked with him, people who know him, people who are familiar with the program, etc., at numerous places. Lane Kiffin, Sunday through Friday, is inconsistent. And, he likes to, very obviously, but the way, so many of the things that he does, his mannerisms, media policies, practice, everything is a lot of the things that he does are built around his experience at Alabama when he worked with Nick Saban. But what makes Nick Saban great is not Nick Saban on Saturday. Because, frankly, people will tell you that Nick Saban on Saturday is fairly good, solid. Mm-hmm. Where Nick Saban wins games is Sunday through Friday and throughout an offseason. That's where he wins his games. That's where he makes his hay. That's where he's built his legacy. And that's where Kiffin's got to make his step if he's going to win, whether it's Ole Miss or anywhere else. He's got to become a better program manager, and he's got to become a more elite an elite coach Sunday morning through Friday night, throughout January and March and April and June, and that's where he's just got to get better. It's bottom line, and I think you see both sides of that this year. He was phenomenal on game day so many times, and yet when you evaluate where he is, you can see where there have been some failures Sunday through Friday, and you certainly see that in the recruiting class that they just signed. Frankly, it just simply should have been better. There's no way around that. And so I think this 23 class has to be better.
Yeah, and I think there's also there's this weird reality for me of, okay, let's take a look at the two teams that are playing for the national title. And if you go look at the other websites, team composite talent ranking.
Other websites.
24.
Other websites. You're talking about like CNN, Drudge Report?
Yeah, me and Matt Drudge, we keep it real.
Okay. So CNN composite reports. Okay, sure.
You look at the CNN talent ranking.
Yeah.
I hope everybody's sitting down for this. The two best rosters are Alabama and Georgia, and there's a decent gap between them and Ohio State. But the reason why I bring that up is I'm now starting to wonder, because I thought this was an interesting season in terms of the SEC. I don't know if it says anything big picture. It may be an outlier. I did take note when Kentucky and Ole Miss combined to go 20-6. And I am now starting to wonder if Alabama and Georgia are separating themselves in the talent, as you talk about the Sunday to Friday aspect of the job, because I firmly agree with you. There are two parts of coaching. There's what you do on game day, and then there's what you do the rest of the time. And maybe they are building these monsters that can't really be caught, because now you start to see where the rest of the league is kind of in limbo. But now you look at what Texas A&M did on the recruiting trail. It seems that come hell or high water, they're bound and determined to buy as good of a roster as you possibly can. And but also tell Lane, hey man, if your argument is we got outbid on a lot of these kids, even though we all know this is just name, image, and likeness, this is not pay for play. Absolutely never pay for play. But maybe there's a reason why you're getting outbid. Like maybe you got to glad hand a little more. Like people have to want to spend money. Like in the end, it's my biggest reason for why I will go to the death arguing that Alabama is the best college football job. They have the largest amount of people that care and that are willing to spend money, not in a sense of I'm going to get anything out of this other than I'm going to see this team win. And it's why every coach, whether it's average, great, they've all won 10 games there. And so at Ole Miss, it's been proven you can have runs. Cutcliffe had a run. Hugh had a run. Houston had a run. Lane has now had a run. It's been proven you can do that. But the next question is, what do you do after the run? Can you build a program? Not can you build a team? And I think that's the question that I have with Ole Miss right now is, are they building a program, or did they build a really good team that, because of
Kentucky's a great example, right? Not to interrupt you, but Kentucky's a great example because Stoops just won 10 games for someone said is that the second or third time?
It's the third time in program history he
second
did it for
under him.
So he's done it twice now. So he's getting closer and closer to doing what we're talking about. It's your ability to build on success and not take a big step back. I talked to someone today who knows a lot of these programs really well, who said, look, anybody who doesn't expect Ole Miss to take a step back next year is just delusional. It's about how big of the step back it is. If it's just a small step back, it's great. If it's a big step back, then you got to climb back up the ladder again, and that's going to come down to how they handle the portal and how they handle some of the things and how they handle this off season. And it's going to be, the schedule is light at the beginning and is super heavy at the end, and so it's your ability to build the kind of depth that you have to have, the whole team building aspect of it, which frankly he's very good at. He's very good at team building. He's got to prove that he's good at program building, but so he's got a very, I think he has a big offseason in front of him that and in the midst of all this, you're going to get the whole Arch Manning thing. I mean, I had people sending me pictures of Arch Manning last night walking up steps or sitting in his chair. And, I mean, everybody's the whole Arch thing is going to weigh heavily on what happens. And I think at this point, if you're betting, the smart money is not on Ole Miss. And so if you don't get Arch Manning and you're Lane Kiffin, you've got to recover from that. You've got to build some momentum. You got to do some other things that remind people that, hey, we're fine. Everything's going to be okay. I just think this is a really big year. And I think if you told me that they go, 8-4 and land a top 15 class, I'd say, look out. Here he goes. He's about to take this thing off because he's a very good coach. But on the flip side, if you told me that they go 6-6 and it's a 28th ranked class, I'm like, look out. You're in trouble because in this league, that's not good enough. And you look around the league and you see Kentucky, and they just won 10 games. And you look at, Arkansas just won 9 games, and Alabama and Georgia are playing for the title, and A&M's recruiting at an incredibly high level. And Brian Kelly wins everywhere he ever goes. He's going to win at LSU. He just is. And you look around like Shane Beamer at South Carolina and Josh Heupel at Tennessee, where it's very clear that there's momentum inside their programs. And I just think this is a really big 7 months coming up.
Yeah, and to your point, I think let's use the example of Arkansas. I know what a lot of Ole Miss people want from Lane Kiffin is, they want to hear him say, I love you, and then I love it here, and this is where I want to be, and whatnot. Yeah. Basically all the things that Sam Pittman says. And the reality is I just don't know if that's ever going to happen with Lane Kiffin. And I could foresee where he ends up being at Ole Miss for 10 years. Like I'm willing to accept that. When I talk about my personal curiosity is I think that Sam Pittman is building a better program because it feels like he's doing it more in a normal sense and building on momentum and whatnot. But you could also tell me, like, the game has completely changed with the transfer portal and whatnot. And while I firmly agree with Neal that you have to be better, I am also willing to acknowledge, well, maybe you can do it this way. And maybe, maybe he is like a Bill Snyder in that, hell, whoever ends up showing up, he ends up figuring out a way to coach him up and getting something out of it because of what Neal mentioned. He's good at building a team. The problem is, as Neal says, you're not in the Big 12 that Bill Snyder was in. Like, I don't think LSU is going to be down very long. I think A&M is going to be able to accidentally win as many games they want over the next 3 years the way that they're recruiting. Alabama is still Alabama. Arkansas, I think, has found an identity and a way to win. I don't think you can just pencil in that you're better than them. Mississippi State is kind of like what a Mike Leach team is. It's like 7-5, 8-4, but it's steady. And then you factor in, in the East and whatnot. If the schedule, does Texas and Oklahoma come in next year? Do you lose the Vanderbilt automatic, which should be an automatic win every year? It just starts to get really hard, and the margins are so razor thin for Ole Miss to be 10-2. I mean, think about this very year. They're one play away in Arkansas from losing. They're probably
Tennessee won't play
against Tennessee from losing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
for sure, those are two games that Matt Corral won
single-handedly in my mind
by himself. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've said this like against Arkansas and Tennessee. If Matt Corral just has good games, they lose both games. I mean, he has great games against those two teams.
And that's not to say that it didn't count. It does. That's the whole point. It
sure,
does count.
That's why you recruit him. But Matt Corral also was more than like the reason that when Matt Corral comes out on crutches last night and he gets a standing ovation was not because he came to Ole Miss in the transfer portal. It's because he signed with Ole Miss and he went through adversity and he stuck through it and all of those things. And when you're building culture inside of a program, I don't. And if I'm proven wrong, hey, it's something to talk about. I don't think you can build your culture through the transfer portal. I think you have to build your culture through guys that have put sweat equity into a place. And if you look at this team for Ole Miss that just won 10 games, it's not just Matt. There's Jerry and Ely, who's been there the whole time. Snoop Connor's been there the whole time. Nick Broker and Jeremy James and Ben Brown before he got hurt, and Eli Acker, who grew up an Ole Miss fan, and you had Dontario Drummond, who'd been there for a while. Braylon Sanders was there for 10 years. Yeah. Mingo signed with them out of high school. On defense, Sam Williams went through hell before he realized, hey, I'm letting my teammates down. Mm-hmm. Katie Hill was at Ole Miss for 12 years. You've got guys in the secondary that were there for a long time. Yeah, and then you supplement it with guys like Chance Campbell, obviously, and Jake Springer and stuff. But the nucleus of that team, I mean, even Mac Brown was there for Mac. Yeah. I mean, he was there forever. I mean, it's just different. I don't think you can go, hey, we're going to go add 14 guys out of the portal every year, and this is going to work. I could be wrong, but I don't. I mean, it's my opinion. I don't think that's how you build a winning program. I think you can do it on a year, but it's got a certain JUCO gambling element to it. And boy, when those bets come back bad, you lose big. And I don't know. I think, again, and I'm doing this to myself because right now I'm the guy that's doing the lion's share of the recruiting stuff. I think this 2023 class is critical.
Oh, I firmly agree with you because I think in the end, everything that you just mentioned there, I think it all comes back to, and again, I understand this isn't great analysis, but for all of us that have played sports, you know it when you see it. You're talking about leadership, and leadership is important. Mm-hmm. I play teams that honestly, the difference between I think about it in my sophomore year when we won a state championship. The year before we went 3-9, and we were awful. And really, we didn't change the roster that much. It was just the difference was the year before we had a bunch of seniors. We only had 6 or 7 of them. They weren't good leaders, and no one wanted to follow them. Well, the next year we had 25 seniors. They all were, in their own ways, they were all really good leaders, and you played for them. And when the margins for error are so slim, I think you're right. I guess the only holdup that I have is I don't feel like I've seen enough to definitively say, because I mentioned it to Neal, Chase, that maybe the transfer portal is like becoming a JUCO school in the 90s. And the best example off the top of my head is just Jackie Sherrill, Mississippi State. And Neal is when they were good, they were good. But, man, when it falls apart fast. And I just don't know if college football is the type of sport anymore where, you can get up top, fall back down, and then try to build it up over 2 or 3 years again. I just don't know. I don't know if you get the chance. I think you basically get one mulligan. And, I think the other big difference is because while no one's going to care if Lane keeps winning, at the end, everyone's going to love him. That's the reality of the business. But what if you don't what if you leave it up to the judges and the fact that you haven't built up any equity in the fan base, you haven't built up any equity in the people that cut the checks? I think that's a very dangerous game to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can – the portal you're going to hit on a higher level than you are JUCO, but, yeah, it still comes back to culture and building your bases and your foundations and all your different things. I think you can cherry-pick it more effectively because you don't have that transition to the second year like the JUCO kids have and all that kind of crap. But the other thing, too, is a lot of JUCOs, you can just kind of get on them. They're not usually getting recruited by the whole damn country. Mm-hmm. That's some of the problem right now that Ole Miss has with the portal is that, the really good players are they're being recruited like high school kids by every damn body.
Well, the reason why I said 90s JUCO is, and I explained this to Neal, in the 90s, guys would go to JUCO, honestly, usually because they were grade problems.
Yeah, sure.
In the late 90s and the early 2000s, people just figured out how to get them in.
Yeah.
You change the ACT rules or whatnot, and so
or just change the ACT.
Exactly, or just take the ACT for them. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
But people, it wasn't just at Ole Miss. Everyone figured it out. And so then it became a situation where now, if you're a JUCO school now, you can't do it. And there's a reason why no one really does it anymore. I guess my one other question is it's okay, what if you build the high school class and now, what if 10 of them, 15 of them weren't ready to play and then all of a sudden then they go into the portal? I just don't know. I think it is this – I think we have to get more structure to this. There has to be some transfer window rules because right now it's just as I think Neal mentioned, Ole Miss's starting center showed up in August.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to be there has to be transfer windows that are, and I think that's coming. And I actually asked Lane about that earlier in the season, and to his credit, he said, yeah, he thinks that's important too. And I think we're just starting to get to where we understand the ramifications of the portal and all of that stuff. And literally on this whole Zach Evans thing, it's okay. Wait a minute, does he have to be eligible right now, or does he have to be eligible by June? And I've talked to different people who are I'm not really sure what that rule is. And so if they're not sure, other people aren't sure as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, thanks for the time as always, not just tonight, but all season long. Really appreciate you doing this.
All right, guys, be good.
Later, Joe.
All right.
Brian, ready?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. I got to get – one of the problems with FaceTime is you have to get out of FaceTime before you can get back into FaceTime.
Yeah, 100% true there. 3-year portal guys are better than 4-year high school kids. It's just getting those kids.
Yeah, of course. I think this is okay, but if not, I'll have to close out of FaceTime audio and then open it back.
Okay.
What's up?
Brian, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm good. How was New Orleans?
It was fun. I would classify it certainly as a lot. We kind of made a week out of it. 5 nights was a lot to handle in New Orleans, but it was a good time.
As a rule, anything over 3 nights in New Orleans,
and even the third one, you can't go crazy all 3.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you this way. I thought there was a chance that they would just eventually find me in my hotel room this morning, and that would be it.
So, I've got several things here. We'll talk some football, talk some crowd. You and I text a good bit. You said that you knew it was going to be a drunk fest even yesterday morning when an Ole Miss fan was ordering a very large drink at 9 a.m., and it kind of carried all the way through. I've heard a lot of people say that from a straight road bowl, however you want to take it, it's probably the best Ole Miss crowd maybe anybody had ever seen.
It was phenomenal. I can't really overstate that, but yeah, you knew it from the time. So New Year's Day, I took a walk to go grab some coffee down the street, and there was tens of people just walking around with fence post beers ready to go at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I think it just kind of progressed throughout the day. The scene outside the stadium before the game was kind of funny. There was I'd say more than a handful of people sort of just sitting on those steps you walk up to get to the Superdome, seemingly just kind of collecting themselves for a bit before going into that stadium. But as disappointing as the game was, on a serious note, the atmosphere was incredible. I would guess it's about 70-30 Ole Miss. Baylor probably brought a few more people than I thought, but it's a shame the game went the way it did, just from mean, it's compelling in a weird way, but I wouldn't call it exciting because that crowd was electric all around. It was one of the better sporting event environments I've ever been in. I don't really have a long list of events, but it was memorable.
The crowd kind of got. I guess when Altmaier throws that touchdown, it sort of juiced them back up. It seemed like it did hit a little bit of a lull before that.
I thought there were that one probably sticks out the most. I thought there were multiple moments in the game. The crowd kind of helped Ole Miss out a bit. I thought it helped the defense a couple times, and when things weren't necessarily going great, after the pick six and all that, I thought there were some times where the crowd picked up Ole Miss and carried them for a little bit. And of course, that's not enough. Crowd's not going to win you a football game, but that certainly was an advantage for Ole Miss. That is for sure. It was a lot louder when Baylor had the football.
Kind of doing some big picture stuff all of a sudden. I can't remember exactly because it was super late at night, but you had some comments last night that I thought were interesting on Twitter. Kind of where the program is as opposed to where the team was. This was a fun team. This was a lot of fun to follow this team, and they won 10 games, and they had the dramatic win over Arkansas and the dramatic win over Tennessee with the delay with the people throwing the stuff, and they beat LSU at home, and they beat Texas A&M at home, and they went to the Egg Bowl and won. And I guess I'm leaving stuff out, but you get the gist. I mean, it was a fun team to follow. But now that the season's over, and the focus shifts from the team to the program. When you look at it from a program standpoint, sort of what do you see? What encourages you as if you were an Ole Miss fan, and what concerns you?
Yeah, it was interesting that tweet actually got a lot of blowback, but I think it was lacking full context, which is shocker. I mean, has anyone ever been taken out of context on Twitter?
No.
But I think it was taken as anti-Altmaier, but it was more along the lines of, you kind of caught a glimpse of what Ole Miss looked like without its superhero quarterback, and I think he masked a lot of deficiencies, and I don't think that's necessarily just related to last night. I actually thought Altmaier was fine. I thought he did some nice things, and he was thrown into an impossible situation. I guess I was mostly just hinting at, even if Altmaier turns out to be good, they're going to have to get better in a lot of areas on both sides of the football for it to, for them to be as good or even as close to as good next year. Because even if he's good, he's not a Superman like Matt Corral is. And so, as you kind of mentioned, this narrative changed a bit because of how well they played defensively the second half of the year. But I just didn't think they were a great roster. They were a fun team that won some close games, had a terrific quarterback, but the roster as a whole wasn't great. But on top of that, they're going to lose a lot. So I left last night thinking, they have a lot of work to be done to get back in even a similar stratosphere. It starts at quarterback, but it's also on the offensive line, on defense as well. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think that's when the recruiting aspect comes in, right? I mean, they didn't exactly garner a ton of reinforcements in this early signing period. It's still kind of TBD in that sense.
What other spots do you feel like they need to get better in? What would you sort of pick out as the 2 or 3 that would tell you if they do, then they can have a little better season, or if they don't, maybe they're in trouble next year?
Can you replicate a pass rush? I mean, I doubt you can go immediately find another Sam Williams, but you do get Cedric Johnson back. Can you find some guys on the defensive line and have a good pass rush next year? And then I think they need to get a little bit better on the offensive line. It was kind of a patchwork job for a large part of this year, but they were okay. But I thought, the 2 most physical teams they played, maybe A&M notwithstanding, they kind of got manhandled, that being Alabama and Baylor. And look, those 2 defensive units do that to a lot of people, but I think they need to get a little bit better up front. Quarterback's the obvious one, but receiver too. They weren't exactly overwhelming at receiver, particularly when Drummond was banged up and they lost Mingo. But I think that's another one as well where they're going to need probably another portal guy or 2.
I'm just kind of curious what the running back room looks like in general at this point. I mean, a lot of talk about Snoop Connor out.
It's 8-10, and Zach Evans hasn't committed yet. And
are you worried?
Yes, I'm alarmed because
hold on a minute.
We've been down this road before.
Are we shocked that Zach Evans is not committing exactly on time?
That guy seems like a straight shooter. Something must be wrong.
Shocked is not the right word. If the story ever sees the light of day,
you're annoyed.
If the story ever sees the light of day, there's a quote from a guy that covers TCU that he refers to him as he's kind of artsy, and I was like, oh my god. I don't know that I'm prepared for this. So are we like Greg Hardy artsy? Is this Robert?
He designed stationery. Greg did.
He's obsessed with wolves.
Wolves?
Wolves, Zach Evans is.
Like the animal.
Like the wolf. Yeah, hungry like the wolf. The wolf howls at night. Yeah, the wolf. Damn it. Don't get me worked up about Zach
Obsessed
Evans.
how?
He likes to draw them.
He draws wolves.
Wolves are cool.
He likes to draw wolves. I know. Brian, did I say at any point that it wasn't fine? This is what Chance
kind of
does to
hyping the
me.
guy up. I mean, they travel in packs. They're pretty loyal to each other. Seem pretty smart. I guess I get why he likes them.
Chase is like, what's wrong with that? Did I at any point say that there's something
You
wrong?
did not put a negative connotation on the Wolves.
Thank you. I didn't say there's something wrong with drawing wolves. I just said that your typical college football player doesn't sit around drawing wolves. And so now we're sitting here on a day when I'm told, hey, he's going to commit today. You probably should get your story ready.
And I was told earlier in the week 72 hours, and today is getting really close to that 72nd hour.
That's all I'm saying. Thank you. See how much easier it was for us to just kind of talk through this in a nice, peaceful way as opposed to you being like, so what's wrong with him drawing wolves and making me out to be the bad guy yet again?
Are Wolves Nocturnal? Could he still be getting his day going? I mean, it's not that late.
Oh, it's a wolf nocturnal.
I probably just made that up. I'm not a zookeeper.
Teen Wolf is a really good movie.
It is? You think so?
Yeah, it's a good movie.
What about Teen Wolf 2?
No.
Not good?
No, because once you made the first one, that's as far as you can take that. It's a boy that turns into a wolf and plays basketball. You can't do more with that. You can't have that sequel other than, hey, this is a money grab. Let's see how it goes.
Underrated deal, but not really, because it was incredibly critical twice last night. Do we have any idea if Caden Costa's getting the next year at all? Or is he most likely out? What is going on there?
Well, I can't address this because of HIPAA.
That was a great way to shut down a reporter, and it made no sense.
HIPAA.
It's a catch-all word. Okay. Well.
From now on, whenever someone asks me a question and I just don't feel like answering, I'm going to say, hey, there's HIPAA laws.
I'm going to try that with my boss at work. But it is interesting because it came up critical last night. And so the way, I don't have his statement put up in front of me, but the way he made it sound was like he was like appealing it for the short term and look forward to getting back with his team next year. But, I mean, unless this kid's trying to have like an unblemished permanent record or something, I don't even think that exists. Like, you're assuming he's appealing to be able to play next year, right? Like that's
because the rule for any kind of performance enhancing thing is 1 a year from when you were
1 calendar year.
Correct. Yes.
So most of next year.
Yeah. So he's trying to get because I mean that brings in questions. I mean, if he's out for a year, it's a kicker on scholarship. I mean, frankly, I'm just guessing and talking through this. I mean, do you run risk of him not being on the roster? I don't know. Is my point. Like, how many players on the roster get the year where they just whatever? I have no idea there.
Particularly a kicker.
Yeah, but I mean, hell, that's pretty important. I mean, last night he makes those 2 kicks, and it's a different game for damn sure.
Yep, and they look like the first one may have gotten tipped, but I'm not sure I love that one's chances of going in anyway. And the second one just felt backbreaking because they looked like they had a chance to not take control of the game, but get the 3 on the board, maybe you manufacture another one the other way and kind of hold on for dear life. That felt very deflating when he missed that.
Well, Costa makes both of those.
Absolutely.
Which changes the game. I mean, duh.
It does, yes. It changes the game. More points in a 14-point game changes the game. Yes. When did you have your last alcoholic beverage, Brian? Today?
I got 2 at halftime, which was pretty much their last call, and I guess I polished those off at midway through the fourth quarter, and then I walked straight to the hotel. It was 1, trying to beat the traffic, and 2, I was worn out. So it wasn't a hugely late night.
I was going to ask, what was the late night post game like? Was it a little more tempered?
I would assume so. I had some friends that kind of went out and did stayed out for a little bit. I don't think it was super late, but in the Rippey hotel room, it ended immediately after the game ended. I think I was back at my hotel by 10:45ish, maybe 11. That's probably 11:45ish. Excuse me, that would have been quick.
People are asking why the hell is a kicker juicing. The story that I was told, and I have been told this is accurate, is that the kicker went to a party over the summer.
I was told this, and it is so whatever that I refuse to even say it out loud at any point over the last 6 weeks.
I can almost relate to this.
You think this is true?
I do think it's true.
Okay.
He went to a party over the summer, I'm told.
At a pool.
At a pool, and apparently some female people at the party jokingly made references to his lack of musculature, and it got in his head, and he decided that he was going to address that aesthetic weakness of himself.
You buy this?
I do.
Do you really?
I do, based on people who have told me.
Okay.
I mean, I've never had that problem for once for obvious reasons, but given how much I work out. But isn't that a great reminder that some of these kids you're covering are 18, 19 years old? That feels like a very 18, 19
They are humans and they're kids.
It's absolutely a reminder. I mean, I live with a 15-year-old boy. I get it. And so when someone said, "Oh, that happened," I'm like, "Okay, we can laugh, but I get it." And he tried to address it and rectify it quickly.
I just didn't like. How does he think he was getting around the test? But I'm guessing the thought process may not have gotten that far. But hey, they grouped the specialists together. As part of this could be, he's having to take all these photos on media day with Mac Brown. It's like, geez, I look like a shrimp compared to this guy.
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
that's good. I mean, yeah.
Do you think you could juice up and really get ripped, Brian?
At 18?
No,
sure.
But Brian, right now.
I couldn't at 26 or 18.
You don't think so?
The steroid thing was out for me because that's also risky business because, I don't have a ton going for me from the physique standpoint. If I started losing my hair, it would just be over. So the risk reward there is not great for me.
Okay.
But the answer at 18 is, yeah, if you do it right, sure, you could bulk up some.
Okay.
I mean, obviously there are ramifications, but yeah.
Last thing, kind of, what's your take on Charlie Weiss Jr.?
I don't know. I'm curious to find out. Like, there's so much unknown with it because I'm curious to see how similar the dynamic is between he and Kiffin from a play calling standpoint here. Because at FAU, it seemed like it was a lot more Kiffin, but it sounds to me like he feels like he has a ton going on running an SEC program, and that's not something he would love to do on a daily basis or on a game-by-game basis per se. So I'm fascinated to see. But, Nick Saban gave him his first job at 22. That's a positive check mark on the resume. The South Florida stuff, I don't really know what to make of that. It's intriguing, but I wasn't necessarily blown away by the hire. What about y'all?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it probably lends to Lane having to do a lot more of that than he has in the past. And what is that? What is the trickle down effect of that? And that's something we have no idea about right now.
Yeah, it's totally.
He's probably looking for another general manager. I mean, there's just stuff with the organization of the program that we're unaware of. So
told me that he got turned down a couple times. That's what it told me. That he just couldn't get.
And we knew of two names.
Yeah, I knew of one that was offered and a second that I suspect was probably offered, and he just couldn't pull it off.
Yeah. So, all right, enjoy. I guess you got back, so rest up a little bit. I guess I got some content coming, and we'll talk to you again soon, bud.
Absolutely. Happy New Year.
You too. All right, that was Brian Rippey.
Green Bay up 6-0. It is 11 degrees in Green Bay tonight.
Is it 11 or 10? I thought it had dropped to 10. Not that it matters.
Okay. Well, that changes everything. Balmy. Sure.
10 degrees with the way that an NFL football gets slick. That'd be tough.
Talk about breaking some fingers.
Be tough to catch.
Because you could even tell that in baseball because you couldn't feel the seams.
Sure.
Catching the really cold baseball.
Sure.
Football. I'm out.
Or if you caught it wrong, the way the glove, got stiff.
It's like back in the day. I remember, I guess when Favre was the quarterback at Green Bay, and was it Donald Driver? You'd look at his fingers, and they were broken so many times that all of his fingers were just mangled from the way the ball was hitting them.
Because Favre threw it so hard.
Yeah, and the weather and the whole deal. Like, literally, Driver's fingers are just,
Still to this day?
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
But whenever I recall seeing that. When's LSU? Is that Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday.
Okay. What are you laughing at?
Avery Forbes said, I feel like Coast is more sad knowing that story got out. I know. It was cold outside today.
It did snow for a little while today. We got sleet and snow.
Gus and Rizzo and I went for a walk, and the wind was serious.
Oh, was it that bad?
The wind was serious.
It got worse as the day went on. I was out in a pretty good bit this morning. It was manageable. It was okay. Then it got worse. So. What?
I don't know. I'm just laughing.
You're a little like punch drunk today.
I'm a little tired. Not really punch drunk.
Did you go to bed pretty quickly after we got done last night?
It was 2.
I was up after that.
I got off the phone with you for a few minutes and then
Gave it up.
I think I fell asleep pretty quickly.
Okay.
Were you up for a while?
Yeah, I was up a little while last
Really?
night.
Phone calls?
I was pretty wired last night.
Oh.
Yeah, it took a little while to. I had coffee. Like I was trying to make sure I was still awake, and the problem you do that was you get done, you go, oh shit, okay, that's not good.
Well, I had poured myself a glass of wine to start working, and I kept looking.
You didn't drink it?
Well, I couldn't because I was on the Zoom, and I was like, people are going to make fun of me. And then after a while, I was like, what difference does it make?
So you started drinking the wine on the Zoom? Did you?
No, I waited till the Zoom was over.
Did you wait till it was over?
I did.
That'd have been kind of funny.
It would have been funny.
But
I don't want to get that reputation for just being completely out of control. All right, let's see. We'll open up the phones. This figures to be a little more normal than it would have been last night. Last night would have just been a nightmare. I mean, I wasn't prepared. I'm going to have to build a graphic here. I think I threw it away.
You what now? The number?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you heard any more from your person?
No.
Okay. 662-259-0991. There's that number. All right, there it is. So and I did the smart thing. I rebooted Skype.
Just in case.
Yep. We might not get calls tonight because people might be watching Yellowstone and Family Guy. Or this game, Green Bay, Minnesota, 6-0, midway through the second. Don't you think I mean, I get the whole I got to act tough thing, but at 10 degrees.
Wear the sleeve.
Yeah, come on, right? Hey, who do we have?
Hey, it's Mark. Am I the first caller?
You
are.
Awesome. Anyway, I was going to say, it was a great year by Ole Miss. I mean, and granted, I hate the way it ended last night. I mean, I feel so bad for Matt, but what is your take on, I guess, if Matt had played the whole game, do you think we would have had a chance? Our offensive line got dominated the entire night.
I think Ole Miss probably wins the game for a couple different reasons last night, but just because of how well the defense played. You had so many opportunities to get a lead, and then Baylor having to come from behind is completely different on offense. Like I think there's some things there where Ole Miss would have found a way, because even if you just take the pick six away, Ole Miss has a lead at some point there in that game. And when you do that, it changes things. It changes things for Baylor. I mean, Ole Miss's defense played really well last night.
But that pick six was a heck of a play by the defense at the end. I mean, he completely read it. Like, it was 100% really good read by the defense at the end. I mean, even if Matt hadn't been the quarterback there, I mean, would Matt have seen that defense and drop back into coverage and make that deflection?
Well, I mean, you might not have had the same play call. I mean, there's just the events would not be to even set it up in that situation, I guess was what I'm saying, more than anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. And Luke, compared to what the hand he was dealt was impossible. And I thought he did really, really well. I mean, I'm really optimistic about him in the future. If he's the quarterback next year, okay, I'm really good with it. But, I mean, the offensive line was just embarrassed the entire night. I mean, it was really, 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 really bad.
No, they got beat up front, no doubt. When you watch the game up front, that's the reason when Chase said that he thought Ole Miss would definitely win. I was like, Maybe.
Indefinitely is too strong, but I do think I would have picked Ole Miss to win the game.
They were going to have to get creative to win the game because they were getting beat so badly up front.
Well, would Ben Brown have made that much of a difference?
Sure.
That would have helped.
I mean, that would have helped, sure. I mean, he's a NFL caliber player. Before the injuries, he might not be now, but before the injuries, he was.
I mean, I don't know that whoever that Leatu, whatever his name, I don't know. I mean, we could not block him the entire night. I mean, he was just disruptive from the very first play. I don't know. I mean, it was a really good season, and I don't want to take anything away from Matt or anything away from the team, but it just really sucked that Matt went out that way, and I really wanted to see him, I guess, guide this team to a victory. But, I mean, with all that said, I mean, only being down 7-0 at the half, I mean, that defense was, oh my gosh. They almost won that game for Ole Miss.
Yeah, they played really, really well. Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it, Mark.
Thank you. Good night.
What is your guess here on the resolution time of this Durkin thing? How long do you think this might take?
I was told this week.
Okay.
I mean, so by Friday.
Work week? Weekend?
I was told this week.
Zach Evans type clock? What do we work on?
Don't say it. I mean,
8:28.
It's a really good story.
He asked for an edit yesterday on Instagram.
I know he did.
So, I mean, he might not have liked it. Might have to send it back to the shop, get another one.
Well, that's happened before.
Yeah.
The edit has stopped things from progressing.
Oh, the edit's important.
It really is. Yeah, I'm not getting into
That is a good point, Randy. How about is the West Virginia defense? Bohannon went 18 of 29 for 336 and 4 against them.
They suck.
I mean, that's like some Wesley McGriff defense up in this place. Like that's bad.
ESPN 3 Reb says A&M very confident it's done. It could be. Listen, I know there were competing sites that were saying that he was staying at Ole Miss today. I didn't have that in those strong of a terms. What I got was that there was still a lot that would have to happen. And that things could change. I mean, that's what I got. We did get Wilson Love, or I did get Wilson Love confirmed that he's out.
Mm-hmm. Oregon.
It is Nick Savage, by the way. I meant to report that this morning that I confirmed it, and I never did. There you go. I've confirmed that Nick Savage is the new strength and conditioning coach at Ole Miss.
Okay.
Why did I not write that?
I don't know.
It was a long conversation with a lot of stuff that came up.
You just forgotten. Okay.
Well, and I wasn't anticipating the call at the time. Yeah, everybody wants Zach Evans news.
I mean, so does Neal. So
Sammy says he's committed to the University of Calgary.
Nothing would shock me.
I mean, I get it.
He also has some work to do academically. This is not 100% all good here.
Well, and the story that's going to get published is going to be confusing to the rebelgrove.com listener, but I'm a reader or an MPW Digital listener. Another person told me that he's in great academic shape.
In what way? Meaning he's eligible?
He's in great academic shape.
I'm going to need some context.
Well, I needed the context too.
Okay.
Because I don't know that everybody understands, self included, and maybe this includes you, maybe it doesn't, maybe you've educated yourself. I don't know that we fully understand what the academic requirements are to be eligible to take advantage of the one-time no-penalty transfer.
You're supposed to have to be academically and eligible to be able to do that.
Academically eligible at the moment of your transfer.
Correct, yes.
Not by June or by August.
The dumbed-down version of the rule is always written as you have to be eligible to do it. Whatever, I mean, again, it's a bastardization, but...
Avery says just publish the story anyway. You know what? I think even if he ends up at like Calgary, I'm going to publish the story.
I've always thought that would be a really good
And put an editor's note on the top that said, I put a lot of work into this on a random Sunday while I watch Cincinnati and Kansas City, and by God, this is going to see the light. It would be
more of a newspaper thing over the years because of what all gets filed. I've always thought a great coffee table book would be stories that were never published, where you publish the stories people have written about games that were won the other way, or coaches fired or whatever, and put them all together in a coffee table book. It would be really, really good.
I've told you this story. I wrote the Rich Rodriguez to Alabama story. I stayed up all night long writing the story. And it was freaking – it was probably to this day, Chase.
He is really proud of the story still 15 years later.
It was probably the best story I've ever written.
Yeah.
It was so good, and accidentally good at that. And I didn't think I had the tape, and I found the tape, and I was like, oh, my God, I found it. And I called him like, hey, I'll cut this deal with you.
Yeah.
Let me write the story, and I don't have to go to Tuscaloosa for the press conference.
Oh, that was right. Yeah.
And he's like, okay, yeah, you got it. And so I wrote, and I filed at like 5 a.m, and it was amazingly good.
It was from the Pat White visit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went up. Pat White at the time was the quarterback at West Virginia. Rich Rodriguez was the coach. Pat White was from Daphne. And I went up, and the plan was to spend 3 or 4 days in Morgantown. And so I got there, and I did this big day full of interviews talking to people, and they had a really good practice, and Rich Rod gave them Sunday off.
That's right.
And so the sports information director at West Virginia calls my hotel room and says, hey, it was me and a guy with the LA Times, a guy that passed away recently.
Dufresne or whatever his name was.
Chris Dufresne.
Yeah.
Andy's brother. Andy Dufresne's
correct.
brother. Hey, Coach Rodriguez has time for you guys if you want to come up. I'm like, what the hell else am I going to do? And so I drive up to the facility, and we're hanging out with Rich Rodriguez, and he's just telling us everything. We're asking, this was like shortly after one of the big coal mining things where the miners had been trapped and some of them died and all that stuff. And that coal mine's not too terribly far from where Morgantown is. And he gives us directions to how to get there. And we go and we talk to people about Rich Rodriguez and all this stuff. And I have all these quotes that, of course, my sports editor in August goes, I don't want that. And something told me to save it.
Well, it's never getting old. That stuff is going to be there forever no matter what.
And so on this December day when Rich Rodriguez is about to be named the head coach at Alabama, I find it. And I start transcribing it. I'm like, oh, my God, this stuff is gold, man. This is great. And I write this story, and I called that night. I got Rich Rodriguez's mother on the phone.
Oh, that's right.
I got his brother on the phone. I got all these people. It's fantastic. I mean, I have this story that just goes on and on and on, and it really flows. And for whatever reason, at 5 o'clock in the morning, I put this really cool ending on it, and I felt great about it. And I sent it, and the next day I get the call. My editor wakes me up. He goes, hey, if you ever want to sell that story, you have our permission.
Oh.
And I was like, well,
the hell are you talking about?
What do you mean sell it? Are you not running it? He's like, oh, you haven't heard? And I was like, no, man, I'm asleep. I told you I had a procedure this morning. And he's like, oh, yeah, he changed his mind. Need you to get back on the coaching search.
Son of a.
And I was just devastated. I was like, oh, my God. And to this day, I'm upset that story didn't see the light of day. And if I could find it, I would just go publish it right now. But it no longer exists. It's somewhere in the ether.
So you lost it.
Oh, yeah. That was 20 laptops ago.
You told him that story, didn't you?
Yeah.
Rich?
Yeah. He was not as amused as I
was. It was that day we were in his office.
Yeah,
right when he first got the job.
He was like, yeah, I don't remember.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
Great. All right.
And I was like, so this
career moment for Neal, but the hell with it.
This relationship's off to a bad start again. Story of my life. No matter how hard I try.
Rich Rod at Bama.
Who knows?
It wouldn't have been what it is.
No. Kirby would have a title by now.
It'd have been a good few years for Grind.
Yeah, Auburn would probably have another title. Houston Nutt would have won a title, an SEC title at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
He would have.
Might have won the West twice. Back-to-back wouldn't just been Cotton Bowl, but just like.
You know, I wonder if I went into AOL into sent mail, if it would show up.
Go back in the day.
Go back into my AOL account because I probably sent it via AOL. Kyle Wilson, thanks very much for the super chat. He says, as a young college student at Alabama during the Shuley years, I'm glad he never came here. Things seem to work here in Tuscaloosa. Yeah, unanswered prayers, buddy.
Man.
But he absolutely had the offer, and he absolutely took it for a brief period of time.
So what made him not take it? What was
his wife?
Oh, really?
Yeah, Paul Feinbaum's show that night was very critical of Rodriguez.
Oh, really?
And Rita Rodriguez heard it and says, I don't want to do that.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
That did it.
I did it. They spent all night talking about it, and she didn't want to do it. And
like a quality of life thing.
Yeah.
Went nah.
And he ended up going to Michigan a year later, and you know the rest of the story.
Did not go well there.
It did not.
He broke that 20-hour rule, and he's the only coach to ever do that and break that 20-hour rule.
Yeah, because most coaches really stick to the 20 hours.
It's a very important rule.
I mean, 20 hours, that's it. You're out.
Part-time. I never had an AOL account.
Did you not?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, you're right there on the age cusp.
I mean, I had like the AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah, that's gone now. Is my understanding.
Sure. MSN Messenger back in the day. I mean, I guess I had a MySpace page, but I don't remember what would have been on the MySpace page.
Yeah, I never did MySpace.
What was the guy's name? Tom?
I don't know. I never did MySpace.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're going to talk about it a lot over the next 8 months. Is there one or two things that stick out in your mind as like the key things you're watching for as we get ready for 2022?
Yeah, quarterback. Just what they do at quarterback. Because look, talked to several people that thinks that Altmaier does have a chance to be a good SEC quarterback, but he's got to develop more. And I mean that's on the coaching staff. It's on Lane. That's on Charlie Weiss Jr.
Sure.
What does that look like? Who comes in? Because it might have been me and you talking. It might have been somebody else. Whoever this was, I guess maybe it was you this morning. And it was a good point. I do think it was you. Talked to several people today. I'm kind of it's all running together. It was almost kind of a worst case scenario because Luke looked for sure good enough to be an SEC starter. Like, hey, that's a 4-star kid. Like,
yeah,
there was some arm talent there. There was a lot of improvisation.
If you're a portal guy, you look at that and go, okay, now what's the deal?
Yeah, am I for sure ahead of that dude?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it wasn't like, oh my God, he's the dude. And it wasn't like Eli against West Virginia where he's just throwing bombs all over the field and you go, holy hell, look what's coming. It was a middle ground that was a little interesting there, a little weird. Look, Chance Campbell has changed their defense. What is he doing? I mean, like I saw Nick Suss's stat today where Chance had over 100 tackles. He had 12 tackles for loss and over 6 sacks. He's the first SEC linebacker to do that since Roquan Smith of Georgia.
Wow.
I mean, just tearing up stat sheets, the way he has everybody in the right place. He's the quarterback of the defense, what he's doing, and then the running back room, because you're looking at a running back room where there's a lot of talk about Snoop Connor leaving Jackson State, potentially a landing spot for Snoop. Might have some other options as well.
Do you think he's leaving?
I thought he was staying until like the last 48 hours, and I would trend more toward leaving, but it's up in the air. I'm waiting on a couple calls to try to get a little more information there.
I'm with you.
As of 8:40, I would bet on leaving, but I would put no money on it.
Okay. I tend to agree.
Jerry Neal has declared for the NFL draft. He obviously admitted last night he was done at Ole Miss. Henry Parrish, very tied to Kevin Smith, very tied to Lane Kiffin. I assume he is back.
But
he's got to get better. I mean, Henry Parrish regressed as the year went on.
Yeah, he did. Jerry got a good grade from the NFL.
Okay, so he's headed to the draft. I like Kentrell Bullock, but we've seen nothing really from him all season. And then Zach Evans and whatever the hell is going on with that. They've got the Judkins kid coming in. The running back room is in enough flux that I'm interested by it from that standpoint. And then, wide receiver. I don't know. They've got Jordan Watkins. You're waiting on whatever is going on with Deion Smith, but every day that it doesn't happen, you have questions. There's academic stuff. There's at least a chance for him to go to LSU or stay at LSU because The problem you got with him is maybe he's still doing whatever, but when he wasn't eligible immediately and you had to have some academic, some classwork done, it gave Brian Kelly a chance. It would allow them to at least have a recruiting battle a little bit for Deion Smith when had he just been ready to go academically, I think he could have wrapped it up before that took place. So there's a lot of stuff there. It sounds like Nick Broker is back for next season. He should.
Last night was
not a good look.
Not a good look.
I think Jeremy will continue to get better. I think he's got an NFL future ahead of him.
Yeah, I do too.
So there's questions. It's there's stuff for dang sure.
For me, it's defense. Can you continue on? You lose Sam Williams. You potentially lose. I think Mark Robinson's gone.
I don't see how he has a year left.
I'd be surprised based on what I've heard. Not stunned, but surprised if Chance Campbell's back.
Okay.
I'm going to text Chance tomorrow. We need to do one more a visit with Chance Campbell, brought to you by The Rogue. Obviously, that's going to be a big topic of that show. It's probably the show he's dreaded doing. He probably dreads my text. I don't blame him. But I think he goes pro because I don't know that Chance can do a lot to elevate his stock much higher than it is today.
Sure.
He went to the SEC and showed he could play. Right? He's not going to get any bigger. He's not going to get any faster. He's not going to get much more explosive. Whatever his role is in the NFL today is what his role would be in the NFL in a year. If I'm advising him, unless it's, hey, I just want to play another year of college.
Mm-hmm.
My brother might be at Ole Miss. I might want to spend a year with him. At which point I go, hey, man, we open the show talking about Matt Corral. I would say the same thing. If that's what you want to do, it's your life. Chance wakes up each day and he looks in the mirror and there's one person, right? He has himself. So if he wants to do that, then cool. But if he were to say to himself, hey, look, I should capitalize now, who could possibly blame him? And so, linebacker becomes a question mark quickly.
Because it's not – those are the two guys that we talk about. They were the best linebackers by far. They changed the defense from a transfer standpoint. Henry's gone.
And I think –
Mobo's in the portal.
Yeah, I think based on something that I know that I'm going to be careful here.
Actually, can Lakia come back because of COVID?
I don't know.
Okay. Or is this his super senior year?
I'd have to pull up.
Whatever.
I think they've lined up a transfer portal linebacker. I know the school. I don't know the name. That tells me that they're at least braced for the kid's getting in the portal early this week.
He is?
Yes.
That's not the kid we didn't know who it was?
No,
okay.
Yeah, we know the school.
Okay.
No, there's another kid. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody's tampering. Your roster's being tampered with, and you're tampering rosters. So just get over it. But it feels like they're braced for Chance leaving.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just a lot. It's a lot of roster turnover. We knew that would happen, and it has. And it can be hard to follow up these special seasons. I anticipate a step back. I think the key thing is that you minimize the step back. And it's not just the record either. It's the way it looks.
And it's progressing your program.
Yes.
Where you're not on every year trying to completely overhaul things.
And again, I think this is a critical SEC, recruiting season. I think it's critical. No, the linebacker's not from North Carolina, and he's not from a SEC school. Neither of them.
If Zach Evans does not show up or is not eligible for some reason, I don't see how any way Snoop wouldn't get a ton of carries if he was back next season.
He'd almost have to.
And frankly, he might just want to go play for Deion. I have no idea. But I don't see...
But he has to get better in pass pro.
He does.
If he's going to play every down.
My point, though, is I think he would have a lot of options. I don't see how a 220-pound back that runs hard wouldn't at least have options.
No, he would. He would have options, but he's got to get better in pass pro. And he's got to become a better every down back. I mean, like Ely of the three is the best in pass pro. And sometimes that's not saying much. But he is, of the three, the best in pass pro.
Yeah. Gonna look how they split.
There's questions everywhere. Like someone says the tight end room. Yeah, that's a question mark. They played last night with one tight end.
Most of the season.
Jonathan Hess dressed and was able to go on like field goal team, but he's having Jones fracture surgery this week. Before the foot injury, he was going to actually play some last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was seeing how they split up running back snaps for the season. Hold on a second.
It's 8-4, a step back with wins versus Mississippi State, Arkansas, Auburn, and Vandy. No, I think they would take that today.
Yeah. No. 100%. 8-4 is not a step back no matter who you beat.
Listen,
I don't care how you do
here's
it.
the thing. I mean, you've got an SEC schedule that includes Kentucky at home, Auburn at home. Two games that people are going to go, okay, well, that's winnable, and it is. But if you watched Kentucky in the Citrus Bowl, you know what's happening there. They are becoming a very solid day in, day out program. And then your road games at the second half of the season, you go to Vanderbilt in the first half, which is a positive because that's an SEC road.
You should be 5-0.
It should be a SEC road win. But in the second half of the season, you go to LSU, to Texas A&M, and to Arkansas. 3 really difficult trips, and I think 3 pretty good programs.
The West doesn't have a bad program.
No.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
The worst program is Mississippi State, and they've been to like 12 bowls in a row.
Well, as I said the other day, so Ole Miss won 10 games, Arkansas won 9, and Mississippi State won 7. That's 19 plus 7 is 26. When those 3 schools combine to win 26 games, somebody else is paying the bill.
Yeah. And frankly, it was A&M because they beat Alabama and Auburn and lost everybody else.
And A&M just recruited an absolute
potentially the best in rivals or whatever history. Snap counts on the season: Jerry and Ely 360 snaps, Snoop Connor 304, Parrish 148, Bullock 3.
Yeah, there's this belief among fans for whatever reason. I think a lot of it is because because Connor is this Mississippi kid that they really embrace. That Parrish
and he runs hard. There's a certain power to him that is appealing.
There's this sense that Parrish took all of his snaps, and the truth is he didn't.
No, he had half the snaps that Connor did on
Henry
the season.
took a step back. He did. He took a step back, and that's the kind of thing that's got to concern you a little bit. I didn't sense a tremendous amount of upset about Wilson Love leaving.
Savage, been at Mississippi State, been at Florida, been with Mullen for a long time.
Yeah.
Green Bay up 20-0 against the Minnesota Vikings. Well on their way to the 1 seed.
Your Saints have a chance still to get
they
the playoffs.
They have to win,
and
then there are like 3 different scenarios that would get them in. The most likely one is
the Niners lose to the Rams and the Saints beat the Falcons.
That's literally it. Because the Vikings losing here removes that. So, yes, Saints and Ram wins, and they're in. That is correct.
What did you think of Antonio Brown walking off the field today?
We can make a lot of jokes.
Mental illness.
It's sad.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to take care of him.
Yeah. That was rough.
Because the problem is that, frankly, he's going to continue to get opportunities because he's talented, which potentially runs his mental health even more into the can. It's sad. I mean,
people in the thread talking about what the record could be. I mean, the thing about next season is that there's a handful of swing games. Like, Ole Miss gets Auburn at home, it gets Kentucky at home, but you could lose both of those games. And if you do, well, the second half gets really difficult. Alabama at home, at A&M, at LSU, at Arkansas, Mississippi State at home.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough sledding.
Hey, look, they're going to win the game, but you're going to have to at least show up and play well against Georgia Tech in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just, oh, my God, it's Northwestern State in town. And they're going to be geeked up for the SEC Sugar Bowl team.
Mm-hmm. No, you got a target on your back
that
now.
By that point, it's potentially ranked.
Well, you just won 10 games. You have a target on your back moving forward. That's where you are. You're no longer the plucky little underdog. You're a premium game in the season ticket package. Texas A&M has you circled. LSU has you circled. Arkansas has you circled. When you go to play in those environments, they're ready for you.
The bye week's in a good spot. It's in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
It's good. It's fine.
We will resume our regular schedule on Tuesday morning. We'll go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think we'll do hand raise guys on Thursday night. That'll be the Friday podcast, and then we'll kind of get into a routine again. Again, thanks to Walk On Sports Bistreaux for hosting this show throughout the course of the season. The pregame show, the postgame show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. There was a lot to it. We'll put a lot into that pregame show, a lot into the postgame show. Also, again, our thanks to the Clearwater Group for their sponsorship of all of our Sugar Bowl week coverage. We intended to be in New Orleans. Then New Orleans said, hey, everything's on Zoom, so we didn't. But we still, I think, brought a lot of coverage to you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And we'll be back next week, on Tuesday, I should say, with our regular podcast, and we'll get rolling. When does Ole Miss basketball? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's Wednesday, I believe, against Tennessee.
Wednesday at Tennessee. So we'll start getting into the winter and spring sports here pretty quick. So, and we'll be covering recruiting, keeping an eye out on Zach Evans and a couple other stories as well. So content coming to you at rebelgrove.com. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Until Tuesday morning, take care.